Hello, friend. This is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to have an honest discussion about depression. And I know it's going to be a lot of stuff people don't want to hear, but it is my prayer. I'm going into this with a prayerful heart, like I do all my videos, with brotherly love. I'm going to say some things that are true, and they might feel a little rough, but it's done with brotherly love. So don't take anything as an attack, because it's not. I'm speaking bluntly because I don't want people to miss the point, and I don't want them to be able to sugarcoat or twist in their mind that, oh, it's okay to be depressed. Oh, yeah. Don't misunderstand. And I'm going to speak very plainly. And I want you to hear, because I've dealt with this in my life, and I know people who deal with this, and it is something people need to hear, because as a believer, you should have the joy of the Lord in your life. You should be happy. That doesn't mean everything going on around you makes you happy. Obviously, look at the world. You can find all kinds of negativity if you want to, or you can choose to think about those things that are lovely and of good report. But even before that, there are people walking around in a daze talking about how they're depressed. I was talking with an individual and they were describing their life to me, and I told them very honestly, from a place of love, of course you're depressed. You should be depressed. That life you're describing is depressing. All they did is went to work, they came home and played video games, they drank some beer, and then they went to sleep and did the same thing all over again. That's a depressing life. It doesn't mean you're depressed. If every day you're doing the same thing that is making your life awful, you're going to get the same emotions of depression, of feeling depressed. Doesn't mean you have some chemical imbalance. Oh, you need some medication over here. No, you need to change your life. And I know people will argue the chicken and egg thing, saying, well, but if you're depressed, you can't make the decision to change your life. Yes, you can. Too many people are lying to themselves, and they're listening to people lie to them. They're going to therapists for decades, getting nothing accomplished. They're more neurotic and more anxious than ever. And they've been babbling out negativity in therapy, sometimes multiple times a week, getting nothing accomplished, and they're depressed. And they don't change the things they need to change, which is, especially as a man, you need to be productive. You need to be active. You need to be doing things. You need to have achievements and accomplishments. God didn't put you here to do nothing. God didn't put you here to just exist. And many people are going through life just existing, and then they wonder why they have the feeling of being depressed. Why wouldn't you? And I understand what I'm saying here. I'm not making an excuse for people feeling that way. What I'm saying is, you're beating yourself up over having this feeling when it is a natural response. If I have a pain in my foot and I look down and see there's a piece of glass in it, I take the piece of glass out. What most people do is they have a bad feeling, they feel depressed, and they go talk to somebody in therapy, or they go get some drugs prescribed to them, and they never even try to examine what is causing this. You would never do that. You wouldn't go, oh, my foot's sure hurting a lot. Let me go to the emergency room. You would at least look and see, oh, there's a piece of glass in it. I don't need to go to the emergency room. I need to get the piece of glass out of my foot. But with their mental lives, they don't even make any efforts to figure out what's going on. And their life is such a way that it can only bring that feeling. And all the drugs and medication in the world can't fix that, as long as your life is still being lived in that same depressing day in and day out of lacking achievement, lacking productivity, lacking effort, laziness, being entertained. How many people are going to a job they hate? They're coming home and they're scrolling social media, or they're binge watching TV shows, or they're watching movies, or they're playing video games, and they're doing all these things to try to escape from the miserable life they've created for themselves. This is not about you blaming your parents. Well, my parents were always depressed. Well, you do the same things they did. Listen, I grew up in a household where my dad would come home and he would read the paper and he would watch the news, and we watched Married with Children together as a family. That's kind of dysfunctional and not good. And the example I saw was not happiness, was not the joy of the Lord, and we were not a Christian family. But if I did the same thing that I saw growing up, then I'm going to follow in the same depressing state because I'm doing the same things. Listen, if you live an average life, you live like everybody else, you live mediocre, you live normal, you live average, there's going to naturally be depression. That is the result. The cause is you living a normal life. The cure, and I'm not a doctor, so don't say, well, it didn't work for me and blah, blah, blah. That's my boring legal disclaimer out of the way. I'm just saying from my life, because I was depressed. I remember as a kid trying to kill myself. I was very depressed because I was living an unfulfilling, boring, pathetic average life of an average person. I actually felt better when I got into gangs and drugs and stuff because I was doing something. And it seemed like I was doing something more useful than the nothing I was doing as a kid. And that happens with many people. They get into drugs, they get into alcohol, they get into promiscuity, they get into all kinds of nonsense to try to escape from the miserable life they've created for themselves. And it doesn't work, especially if you're a believer. How can you be depressed when you know God Almighty? And I'm not saying this as a put down. I'm asking you a legitimate question. How can you? Well, is it because you haven't been following His Word? You haven't been following His teaching? You haven't been following the leading of the Spirit? You've been following what the world does. You've been following the spirit of the world. You're doing what everybody else does, and you're expecting these glorious results that you should have in life, except for the fact that you're not doing the things that would actually get those results. So it's going to be a wake-up call for some people. Do something different. There's an old saying, I think it was Jim Rohn said, that if you want to change your life, you change your life. You want to stop feeling sad and depressed and run down and miserable? Start exercising, start being productive, maybe get up earlier, stop with all the useless, mindless entertainment. Start doing some things that you want to do. I don't care what it is. If it's painting art, if it's writing a book, if it's writing poetry, if it's singing, if it is fixing things around your house, if it's mowing your yard, whatever it is you feel like you should be doing that is productive and useful, go do it. Stop putting things off. Stop making excuses. Stop boo-hooing and start doing some productive things. Go with this in prayer. Ask the Lord, what should I be doing each day? And, importantly, ask, what should I not be doing each day that you're doing right now? And then, even more importantly, when He gives you an answer, implement what He teaches you. You know, my website is Taught to Profit, because God teaches you to profit. But it's not just about money, it's about everything, all areas of life. To have the best health, the best mentality, the best amount of money and influence and productivity. But you need to have all things lined up. All things are good. All things are blessed of the Lord. All things you see God's favor overflowing in. You shouldn't have an area of your life where it's pitiful and you're depressed and you're miserable. Because there's opportunity available to you to have the best life possible. But you have to make the choice. You have to do certain things. You have to choose a different way, a different path. You can't just say, I'm going to wake up today and do the same thing I did the day before, but I'm going to expect to not be depressed when I was depressed the day before. And I was depressed the day before that, and the day before that, on and on and on. Let's not be foolish here. If you do not like your life and where it is at this point, first thing, don't see the depression as necessarily something bad. It is just like that pain, like I talked about if you had a piece of glass in your foot. The pain is an indication that there's something wrong, and you look for the cause of the pain. In this case, in most people's cases, the cause of the pain is the pathetic life they're living. The bad choices they keep making day in and day out. The choice of going and running to alcohol or drugs or something else that's degenerate and that is worldly and that is keeping them from the Spirit of God and is keeping them bound by the flesh, instead of choosing to go to God and choosing to be taught to profit and choosing to be learning and led by the Spirit of God. And importantly, choosing to do what the Spirit of God leads you to do, which I'm going to tell you something. This might be a secret for some people. The Spirit of God does not teach you to do less. He doesn't teach you to pull back. He doesn't teach you to be weak. He doesn't teach you to be miserable. He doesn't teach you to be depressed. He teaches you good things and profitable things and productive things and useful things that make the world a better place, and importantly for you, make your world a better place. So I want to encourage you today, whatever's going on in your life, take personal responsibility for it. Doesn't matter if it's other people's responsibility. Doesn't matter if other people did this or that to you and you want to blame them. This is not about blame. This is about responsibility. You take responsibility for your life and you start choosing different actions so you can get different results, and that will lead to you feeling better. And the depression, in most cases, which is caused by people's life, that they keep doing the same thing and keep repeating patterns, will naturally dissipate and go away. And that's up to you to choose. You could choose to go with the world, be average, be like everyone else, and then wonder why you're depressed because you're working against your God-given creativity, your God-given ability, and the potential that is bound up within you, which should, as a logical consequence, make you feel depressed, because that's a bad place to be. It is not a good place to be. And you would be insane to feel good about that and to feel happy and to feel overjoyed about living that kind of life. You can have the best life possible. Jesus came that you might have life and that more abundantly. And I encourage you today to choose that each and every day. It's going to be hard at first. That's all right. And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm saying that so you understand and not shrink back again. Understand that you've been in a pattern, in a rut, and it's leading you constantly, day in and day out, to feeling bad. And you can choose different choices throughout the day, maybe hundreds of times a day, and you'll start getting different results. You'll start feeling better. Your life will start to blossom, and the glory of God will just shine upon you each and every day. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.